The most luxurious prison in the world. As someone who aspires to be a man of class, I've tended to avoid prison, as it is a grotesque and depressing institution, as well as rather unfashionable. Prisons are used to separate criminals from society, and they tend not to care as much about living conditions and comfort as they do security and discipline. Prisons are cold places of solitude for poor souls who went down the wrong path, or, even worse, were falsely accused. Prison is simply a place no one should ever want to be. It's likely that any movie you've seen relating to prison is about breaking out of one. And this makes sense, as prison should be a place of punishment and correction. But one prison, however, has decided to break from this mold and created a prison with living conditions like no other. And while I would never commit a crime heinous enough to deserve a prison sentence, if I had to, I'd do it in Norway. Bastøy Prison in Norway is the most luxurious prison on the planet. Located on Bastøy Island in the Oslo Fjord, this unique prison is home to a little over 100 inmates. Norway is known for their liberal prison reform. Rarely do sentences of any kind exceed 21 years in the country, and most of them last less than a year. The country has established many open prisons like this one in Bastøy that are low-security institutions, with the goal of helping inmates build skills applicable to the outside world. So they will be better off when they are released than they were before the arrest. All of the inmates in Bastøy have been transferred to the island from other, hopefully less lavish, penitentiaries. With good behavior, a prisoner in Norway can apply to be transferred and must be reviewed and deemed significantly rehabilitated. The vetting process also includes a psychological exam that determines whether or not the inmate is likely to try and escape the prison. The applications are available to essentially any of the male inmates in Norway, including rapists and murderers. In fact, one inmate that spent time at this low-security prison got himself thrown into the pen by murdering 2 people with a chainsaw. If it were me, I would have only admitted inmates who stopped after 1 chainsaw murder. But you'll soon see why these men are eager to apply to Bastøy and leave behind whatever dungeon they reside in. Bastøy is said to be the cushiest prison in the world, and trust me, it's downright cushy. The first glaring difference between Bastøy and what you'd expect from a typical prison is the living accommodations. If any college students are watching, I'm sorry to say, but the decor in the inmates' rooms at Bastøy rivals more of a higher-end dormitory than a place meant to house a criminal. The inmates are allowed lots of belongings and decorations in their rooms, including TVs, making the rooms indistinguishable from the typical bedroom of a free man. The inmates live in cherry-red wooden cottages or the big white mansion in the center of the island, with hallways that resemble that of a comfortable, perhaps dated, bed and breakfast. Outside, a collection of buildings, each with a different purpose, some recreational, some work-related, stand tall on the small island. There's a public beach on the island, accessible by an inmate-ran ferry. Horses roam around the gravel roads. There are tennis courts, a sauna, plenty of places to fish. There are cows to milk, and there are chickens to gather eggs from. Most of the work assigned to the inmates is related to the farmland on the property. The prison hands responsibility to the inmates by offering them different options in terms of their daily work. Inmates at Bastøy can make their own decisions regarding how to carry out their respective sentences. Some have chosen to work with the various animals, feeding the horses in the stable, raising cattle, sheep, or lambs. Others have filled positions such as chefs, grocery store managers, carpenters, mechanics, and, as I mentioned earlier, ferry operators. The farming has provided the prison with a menu that you wouldn't believe. Instead of the stale food plopped on a metal tray you might imagine when you think of prison food, the men at Bastøy enjoy a menu that includes fish balls with white sauce and shrimp, chicken con carne, salmon, and much more. Maybe you're not one for fish balls, but those meals are up to the standards of someone indulging on vacation. If someone were sent to the island and was never told they were standing on the prison ground of rapists, murderers, and heroin traffickers, they would more likely guess they were at a resort. Oh, and by the way, if it doesn't feel like a resort enough, the inmates are taken on an annual skiing trip each winter. There are no barbed wire fences or spotlights on the island. Besides the obvious similarities, Bastoy and Alcatraz have essentially nothing in common. The inmates are required to check in several times a day with the guards so that their whereabouts are known. In other words, escaping this prison would be a cakewalk. The governor of Bastoy Prison gives a speech to new inmates in which he says, "If you should escape and make it across the water to the free shore, find a phone and call so I know you're okay so we don't have to send the Coast Guard looking for you. So, if you escape, just give them a call so they know how things are going." Overnight, no more than 5 guards stay on the island to keep watch over the 115 criminals. Amazingly, the greatest security Bastoy provides is the fact that it is such a low-security, easy place to be. Simply put, the prisoners don't want to escape, because if they did and were to be caught, they would be sent to a harsher, maximum security prison. You know, the kind that doesn't let you sunbathe on the beach. If an inmate is within 18 months of their release, they are allowed to get a job outside of the island, provided that they come back by their own means each night before midnight. You might be asking, do the prisoners even want to leave Bastoy? While it doesn't seem like such a bad place to be, the answer to that question is always yes. One prisoner commented, "It's still prison. In your mind, you're locked up." While the prison offers a multitude of freedoms that other prisons take away, it still separates the criminal from his family. The island holds just 115 prisoners, all of whom are male. The goal of this prison, is to keep the prisoners from reoffending after they're released and sent back into the free world. Officials at the Bastoy prison claim that just 16% of inmates released end up reoffending within the next 2 years. The 3-year reoffense rate from prisons in the United States is closer to 50%, give or take 3 or 4% depending on which source you choose. Although the numbers are compelling, Bastoy is still a highly controversial subject in academia. So that's Bastoy Prison for you. Truly a bizarre place where one can be sentenced to swinging a racket through a tennis ball after swinging a chainsaw through a person. From dealing cocaine to hitting the slopes each winter, from rape to raising cattle, the Norwegian approach to prison is unlike any other. At the moment, Norway has just 3,600 incarcerated criminals. The United States has 2.3 million. Relative to population, the US has 10 times more incarcerated criminals than Norway. The approach to prisoning in Norway is meant to mirror that of parenting, while in the United States, it feels more like a warehousing of criminals, in which a bad person is thrown in a room for a while so that they can't harm the public for an extended period of time. Norway has earned a reputation with its revolutionary approach to punishment of crime. As mentioned earlier, the maximum prison sentence in Norway is almost always 21 years. The penalty for crimes against humanity, like genocide and war crimes, are given a 30-year maximum. One case of great controversy is that of Anders Behring Breivik. Breivik was responsible for a bombing and shooting spree last year, which left 77 people dead, some of which were children. The country's progressive approach to prison sentencing expects nearly every prisoner to return to society. Because it's likely in less than 30 years, Breivik will once again walk freely, and while much less likely, it's still possible he could end up in a minimum security prison like Bastoy. The debate is raging in Norway. Clearly, the institution of prison isn't something us humans have perfected. One of the biggest problems that occurs when someone is sent to prison is that they are separated from their family. This is usually a problem that is brought on by the poor decisions of the criminal, but the consequences apply to far more than just the one who gets locked up. What if a prison sentence keeps a baby from being able to grow up with a father? What if the crime the father committed, while worthy of a prison sentence, isn't worthy of separating him from his child's early life? This presents a moral issue for the state who has locked up the father. So, if you're planning on robbing any banks anytime soon, I'd say book a flight to Norway and find yourself something suitable. I'm sure you could find some luxury comfort over there. As always, I'm Mr. Luxury, and thank you for watching this video. Pip pip, da doodly doo.